Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority. I'm someone who has been a murderer for almost 20 years.
Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better.
People say Ted Bundy didn't show any emotion. There must be something in there. I showed emotion. You know what people said? See, you really can get violent and angry.
Welcome to the Squonk The Hag, a podcast about murder, mystery, the supernatural, and even a conspiracy or two.
Dun, dun, dun.
My name is Mo.
And I'm Kraken.
And this week, our fine froggy friend Krako has, I believe, 2 stories for us.
I do. 2 that are sort of short, so we're just going to combine them into a little 2-part thing, because they're 2 stories that I found interesting. The first one being a bank robbery that didn't quite go the way that the robbers wanted it to. I mean, most bank robberies usually don't go according to plan because, you know, they usually get caught, but this one went a little worse. So this is the North Hollywood Shootout. It was a confrontation between 2 very heavily armed and armored bank robbers. 26-year-old Larry Phillips Jr., and I'm going to butcher this dude's last name, and 30-year-old Emil Mătăsăreanu.
So wait, it's not like a shootout between robbers and cops?
No, it's a shootout between robbers and cops. It's these 2 and the Los Angeles Police Department.
Okay, I misunderstood. Continue.
Yeah. So a little bit of backstory on the 2, I guess, stars of the story here, if you want to call them that. So Larry and Emil, they first met at a Gold's Gym in Venice in Los Angeles in 1989. They were both interested in weightlifting, bodybuilding, you know, the normal stuff, but they were also interested in firearms. Before they had met, Larry was a habitual offender, being responsible for several real estate scams, numerous counts of shoplifting, you know, the usual criminal thing. And Emil was the usual crimes, yeah. And Emil was a qualified electrical engineer and ran a pretty unsuccessful PC repair business. And on July the 20th, 1933, these 2 had robbed an armored car outside Littleton, Colorado.
Wait.
Then again,
I thought you said this took place in the 80s.
We're getting there. We're covering their previous adventures before we work our way up to that.
Oh, okay.
They met in 1989 at this Gold's Gym in Venice, LA. Then after they had, I guess, gotten to know each other, and they were like, hey, let's go rob some stuff together.
Uh-oh. We're only human, and Krako's notes said 1933, but a quick correction in this next section, it's actually 1993.
And that's when on July 20th, 1933, they robbed this armored car outside a bank in Littleton, Colorado. Then again, on October 29th, they were arrested in Glendale, just outside Los Angeles, for operating a stolen vehicle. Larry had surrendered with a concealed weapon, which led to the police searching the vehicle, where they found 2 semi-automatic rifles, 2 handguns, and more than 1,600 rounds of AK-47 ammo, along with another 1,200 rounds of 9mm and .45 ammo.
What?
As well as... There's more, but wait, there's more. As well as radio scanners, smoke bombs, and improvised explosive devices, body armor, and 3 different California license plates.
What the actual hell?
Yeah. Now you see why I thought this was interesting, because, like, these guys went all out. They were, but upon finding all of these supplies in the car, they were initially charged with conspiracy to commit robbery, and they both served 100 days in jail and were placed on 3 years of probation. After they were released, most of this property was returned to them with the exception of the firearms and explosives. So they got, like, their armor back, their radio scanners, but they didn't get any of the smoke bombs, anything like that back.
Right.
And then again, a little bit later on, a few years down the line, on June 14th, 1995, the 2 again decided to rob another armored car. This time it was a Brinks armored car I'm going to butcher this name, in Winnetka, Los Angeles. They killed one guard and seriously injured another during that one. And then we jump forward again. There's not much details on this one. It's just kind of like a summary of their shenanigans, I guess, is a word for it. It's definitely a word for it.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, it's something.
You say shenanigans one more time.
Shenanigans.
You've
fast
never
forward
seen
ahead.
Super Troopers, have you?
If I say no, are you going to smack me?
Yeah.
I'll get the shoe.
Super Troopers is one of those ones you have to see, my dude.
Yeah, it looks like something I'd be interested in, so like I definitely need to add that to my list of things I need to watch. So,
Correct.
but we're only going to jump forward one more time before the main event, so to speak. But in May 1996, they robbed two branches of the Bank of America in the San Fernando Valley area, stealing around $1.5 million.
So pocket change.
Yeah, basically. And this is where the investigators of this case gave them their nickname. They were known as the High Incident Bandits due to the weapons that they used.
The High Incident Bandits.
Yep.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah, and speaking of mouthful, I've got some very large, what's the word I'm looking for here? Medical terms to use coming up, so that's going to be fun.
Uh-oh. Did you like do the Google thing that tells you how to pronounce stuff?
No, I just sort of like very slowly said it and was like, that's close enough. So basically what I usually do, and it usually ends up being wrong, but we'll get there.
Like the Adirondack chairs?
Yeah, those. Yeah, the abacus chairs. Yeah.
The Adirondack chairs?
Yes, those.
Named after the Adirondacks?
Yes. Anyway.
You're never gonna live that one down.
Oh, I understand this, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. As long as you understand.
Yeah, they were named the High Incident Bandits by the investigators due to the weapons that they had used in these three robberies prior to the North Hollywood incident. So our main course here for the story took place on February 28th, 1997, at the Bank of America. This resulted in the death of both robbers and the injury of 12 police officers and 8 civilians.
Oh my god.
Including numerous vehicles and properties that were damaged or destroyed.
So they literally went down guns blazing.
Basically, yeah, because all of this property damage and vehicle damage, it was all done by the nearly 2,000 rounds of ammunition that was fired by both robbers and police.
So, I know, times are different now. But I feel like if someone just buys thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition, they should be on a list somewhere, right?
I mean, you would think it would, if you buy it all at one time, then it raises a little concern. But I mean, they could have bought it over time. I'm not quite sure about that. But wait till you hear all that they brought to this.
It's not as crazy as if you buy it in a day.
Yeah, it's sort of like the whole don't buy all your party supplies in one place. I guess. Anyway.
Wait, no. What?
No, I'm thinking back to a scene from the show Breaking Bad, where because the show is about a teacher cooking meth, but basically he comes across two people in the store who are also in this business, and they're buying all of their supplies to make this product in the same hardware store. So they've got it's obvious what they're doing if you look in their shopping cart. So he just walks up to them and is like, bit of friendly advice. I know what you're doing. 1, stay out of my territory. 2, don't buy all your stuff in one place. It makes it less obvious and less suspicious.
Yeah, but where does the party supplies come from?
I just said party supplies. I didn't know what else to call it. I just said party supplies.
I was just so confused. I'm like,
Listen,
you
I
should
used
buy
some
your
interesting
balloons.
words here. This is fine. This is fine.
I'll
I'm
buy
surprised
my
you haven't learned
balloons
this
over
yet.
here and my streamers over there.
Yeah, you know, the typical things for a bank robbery. You know, the party poppers, the streamers, little party hats.
Oh my god, could you imagine bank robbers showing up with little party hats on?
Oh my god. I don't want people to rob a bank, but that'd be hilarious.
Now, I know, like, I tried finding the article, but it was so long ago, talking about stupid bank robberies. Again, tangents. You and I are great
Yes.
at tangents. When I was a kid, my dad loves, there's a news article, News of the Weird. And it's always just like, you know, just weird stuff that happens. And I don't know where it was. I don't know when it happened because I was a kid. But somebody robbed a bank and their getaway driver lost the nerve and left. So the bank robber stole a steamroller and tried
Fair
to
enough.
get away on a steamroller.
I mean,
And,
hey, at least they didn't just give up, you know? I mean, they tried.
They probably could have run faster than a steamroller.
Yeah, probably. And it probably would have been less obvious. You know, a steamroller's kind of like an obvious thing to be on the lookout for.
Well, yeah, and like the cops could have just like walked next to him and be like, "You coming down?"
You want
yet?"
to just you want to just stop? Like, there's no reason for this. It's fine. We love a good rant, rabbit hole, tangent thing. Yeah.
You don't even know what to call them. That's how good they are.
Yeah, that is how good it is. It's its own thing. But let's go down the extensive list of everything that these two gentlemen had before they went into this bank. They wore homemade body armor. They had AK-47s and M16 style rifles equipped with 100 round drum magazines. They also had an HK-91 rifle, which is just another type of semi-automatic rifle, all of which had been modified to be capable of select fire, so like they could fire one bullet per pull of the trigger, or they could hold the trigger down and just empty all that they had, basically.
As an observation, you don't go someplace armed like that unless you plan to use it, and that's that's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
Because we're not done yet.
Yeah, like you just start like 100-round.
I just started, and they already have 3 different rifles, all of which have 100-round drum magazines and are equipped to, you know, just empty all 100 bullets with a single hold of a trigger.
Yeah, and like that, like I don't know if you're gonna go into this, but it's like, what was their plan? Like, if you're just gonna
Their
go
plan
rob
was
a
to
bank,
get in, grab a bunch of money, get out, and get away before the police showed up.
like,
That was the plan.
The smartest, like they always say like the most like crazy or most effective weapon in a bank robbery is just a note.
Yeah, like their whole thing, it seems like, was like show of force kind of thing, where it's like, we clearly have the upper hand here. You'll do what we say and we can get in and out very quickly and no problems. And we're going to touch on the several things that like led to this going sideways very fast. There were several things that they didn't count on that kind of threw a wrench in their plans.
I don't know if I'm ready for this or not.
But on top of all of these rifles, they also had a 9mm pistol. Each of them had a 9mm pistol. And this was just a rumor, so I don't know if this is 100% true, but they allegedly filled a jam jar with gasoline and placed it in the getaway vehicle with the intention of setting the car and the gear on fire to dispose of evidence. Don't know why they specified with a jam jar. I feel like that's, you know, an awful small jar.
I was just gonna say, those are tiny.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
Not to
guess
mention
they thought they were
there's-
just going to light that and it would, like, kind of kickstart the whole thing. So that's the weapons that they had. Larry wore 40 pounds of equipment, including a Type 3A ballistic vest, which is, that level of vest is usually designed to stop, like, handguns. It's not really designed to stop, like, rifle bullets and stuff like that. and a groin guard, as well as a load-bearing vest with multiple ammo pouches and several pieces of homemade armor that he created from spare vests, which covered his shins, thighs, and forearms. Emil only wore the 3A vest, but included metal ballistic plating. Additionally, each man had a watch sewn onto the back of one of their gloves to monitor their timing. They arrived at the bank in their white 1987 Chevy Celebrity at 9:16 a.m.
Ooh. You know, they are probably the guys that TLC wrote the song No Scrubs about, you know, pulling up in the passenger side of your best friend's ride in that
Possibly.
that's Chevy Celebrity, man.
I mean, it could be. This is a pretty popular event because of all that happened. Because I talk about this later on, but this whole shootout that happened, this being a different time, this was all broadcast live on TV. The entire shootout was shown live on the news.
Oh my god.
From the helicopters.
Oh my god.
There's even video clips out there that you can see. There's nothing graphic, but you can see the robbers firing at something off camera, which would be police cars and police officers.
Policemen, yeah.
But like, it's very clear video, and like, again, nothing graphic if you want to look it up, but you can basically see a shootout happen in the middle of the streets.
Holy crap.
So they get there at 9:16 a.m. and each took, now here we go with the names, each took phenobarbital. It's a sedative that was prescribed to Emil to calm their nerves.
That is actually how you say it.
Yeah, that's why I said
and
it slow.
I know this because my cat growing up had to take phenobarbital.
So on top of that, toxicology would later find that Larry also had ephedrine, which is a central nervous system stimulant that is often used to prevent low blood pressure during anesthesia. It has also been used for narcolepsy and obesity, though those are not like a common. That's not a common thing to use for those last two two things or whatever. I almost said symptoms, that's not a symptom. Here we go with another long one. He also had phenylpropanolamine. It's a synthetic agent which is used as a decongestant and an appetite suppressant. Yeah, we're going through all of their toxicology report here. Emil had also had on top of all of that, that was Larry's report. Emil had phenytoin. It's an anti-seizure medication. So they synchronized their watch alarms for 8 minutes, which was the time that they had estimated for police response before entering the building. Because Larry had used a radio scanner to monitor police response to other robberies to come up with their time frame for how long they had to get in and get out before police showed up. Though that's not going to help them in this case. So once they go inside, they do the whole thing. They order everyone to the ground, shoot a few rounds into the ceiling to, show they mean business, I guess, before firing at the bullet-resistant door that led to the bank tellers and the vault. Now, unfortunately for the bank tellers, this door was only designed to withstand small arms fire, and it only took a few shots from their rifles to bust open the door.
Oh no.
They ordered the tellers to fill the bags with money and from the safe, and at this point they realized there was a whole lot less money here than they had expected due to a change in the bank's delivery schedule. This made Emil very angry, so he emptied his 75-round magazine into the vault door, destroying the rest of the money.
I know you have mentioned they're not that bright, otherwise they probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have robbed a bank, especially in this manner. However, you would think somebody between the two of them would have checked the delivery schedule.
You would think that's something you double check, if that's what you're going for, you think you would double check that.
Yeah, like you can sit across the street at a coffee shop and see when the truck comes.
Yeah, like clearly they've done so much research, they know the police response time. But yet they didn't check the
don't know
delivery
when
schedule.
the money is there.
Oh, it gets even better.
Oh no.
They were only able to obtain $303,305 and 3 die packs, which later exploded, ruining all of the money that they stole. Rather, what they had initially expected to steal was $750,000. They
So
only
they
got
got
the $303,000, and then they ruined all of that because they got some die packs with it. So after all of that, Emil decides to go for the bank's ATM. But, here we go again with another but, due to policy changes, the branch manager no longer had access to the money inside the ATM.
This
So
is
while
like
Emil
a
and
bureaucratic nightmare for robbers.
really is. Like, everything that could go wrong is going wrong for them.
Like,
But,
I don't know about you, but like when I have a day like that, I'm like, I just give up. I'm done.
At that point, you need to just leave while you
Yeah,
can.
I would just be like, you know what? Nope, this isn't worth it. I'm
Yeah,
done.
the first time something went wrong should have been their cue to, like, just leave.
Yeah. It's like, well, bye.
Because, unfortunately for them, what they did not know was that 2 police officers who were on patrol saw them enter the bank with their ski mask and their rifles and everything, and they called for backup, which responded within just a few minutes, and they surrounded the bank while they were inside doing all of this. So at approximately 9:24 a.m., Larry left the bank through the north doorway after noticing a police car about 200 feet away. Larry sees the police car and decides to open fire, wounding 7 officers and 3 civilians. Our boy Larry here also decides to shoot at an LAPD helicopter that was surveying from above, forcing it to retreat to a safer distance, before briefly taking cover inside the bank, only to reappear again through the north door, while Emil left through the south door. Now, another thing that is not good about this is, because of the time that all this happened, police officers did not carry rifles or body armor. They only had their standard uniform, shotguns, and a small caliber handgun, which they soon discovered. Unfortunately for them, the weapons that they had were unable to penetrate the robber's body armor. An officer was heard on the radio about 10 to 15 minutes into the shootout, warning other officers that, and I quote, "They could not stop the getaway vehicle. They've got automatic weapons and there's nothing that we have that can stop them." So upon realizing how badly they were outgunned, some of the officers took to nearby pawn shops and gun stores to grab whatever they could from the stores to stop these people.
Oh my god.
They just went into the gun store and was just like, "Give me whatever you got." Just to kind of hold them off a bit until the SWAT team could arrive.
Yeah.
So Emil at this point has been shot several times in the bank parking lot before he drops his duffel bag of money and gets into the getaway car. Larry grabs his other rifle from the trunk and he continues firing at officers while he's walking alongside this car. So basically Emil is driving the car slowly down the street while Emil is walking by the passenger door and firing using the car's
like using
cover.
it almost like a shield.
Pretty much. As he approached the passenger door, Larry was hit in the shoulder, and his rifle was struck on the receiver. After shooting a few more shots with one arm, he dropped this rifle and got the other one before leaving the parking lot and retreating onto the street while Emil drove. So at around 9:52, they both split up, and Larry took cover behind a truck, and eventually his rifle had jammed, so he switched to his pistol and fired a few shots at police, until an officer just got very lucky and hit him in the hand, causing him to drop his gun. After he picked it back up, he realized that things weren't looking so good, because he's running out of ammo and weapons to use. So Larry takes his handgun and puts it to his chin.
Oh god.
As he fell, an officer shot him in the torso, severing his spine. SWAT team is there at this point, and they have higher caliber weapons, but those still had very little effect on the body armor that they had. The SWAT team had also commandeered an armored car. I don't know exactly if this was like their armored car or if they found like an armored bank car or what they took. It just says they commandeered an armored car.
It was armored.
It was some sort of armored car. But they used that to evacuate the wounded, so that way they had a little bit of extra cover.
Oh, good.
Well, while all that was happening with Larry, 3 blocks away, Emil's vehicle was rendered inoperable due to the 2 of the tires being shot out and the windshield being covered in bullet holes. So at 9:56, he tried to carjack a pickup truck by shooting at the driver, who got out and fled on foot. He was unharmed. He just like
good.
shot in the general direction. So he got
Scary
away.
Guy. Yeah.
But he wasn't so scared that like he remembered to take the keys out of the car basically when he got out. So Emil didn't realize this, so he moves all of. What was that?
It basically seems like these 2 guys, like, somehow screwed with Lady Luck and pissed her off.
Basically.
Because anything that could go wrong did go wrong. Which,
Yeah.
in this case, they were doing wrong. They were doing bad things.
Mhm.
So, you know, but it's like they just didn't get the hint.
No, they kept trying, but Because Emil didn't notice that there were no keys in the car, so he moves all of the weapons and ammo into the truck before realizing that the keys are missing. So at this point, while he's done all that, he just wasted a bunch of time doing all of that, only to have no getaway car. A patrol car, which was driven by 2 SWAT officers, showed up and stopped on the opposite side of the Jeep to where the original getaway car was stopped. Emil got out of the truck and took cover from police behind the original getaway vehicle, and they engaged in 2.5 minutes of almost uninterrupted gunfire.
Oh my god.
Emil's body armor deflected 2 shots from one of the officers, which briefly winded him before he was able to get back up and continue firing. They were eventually, this is how they took Emil down, they were able to shoot under the truck and hit him in the legs.
And he's the one who wasn't wearing leg armor, right?
Yeah, Emil was the one who only had basically a vest on and with some added metal plating, but he didn't really have all out like Larry did.
Yeah, like Larry had his shins and his legs.
Yeah, he had everything. They got him in his unprotected legs, and he tried to surrender, but was being very hostile and uncooperative. So as you know, with crime scenes and stuff like this that happens, the active shooting stuff, ambulance personnel were following their standard procedure and were refusing to enter the hot zone because he was still considered dangerous, and because with everything that was going on, they thought that there was a third shooter still on the loose. So ambulances were not able to get into the scene. Some reports say that Emil was laying on the ground with no weapons for about an hour before ambulances were able to get to him. Supposedly he was pleading for help while at the same time, like, taunting and yelling at the police officers. So I don't know how he thought those two things were going to help him, together, asking for help and then yelling at someone. But police radioed and tried to get him an ambulance and EMTs, but Emil kept loudly swearing and repeatedly goading the police to shoot him in the head, but eventually he died from trauma and blood loss before the EMTs were allowed to reach the scene about 70 minutes later. The report for Emil would show that he was shot a total of 29 times in the legs.
Oh my god.
And Larry was shot 11 times, including the self-inflicted wound to the chin. And again, like I said, most of this incident, including the death of Larry and the surrender of Emil, all of this was broadcast live by news helicopters. So like from start to finish, if you were watching the news that morning, you were going to see coverage of this all morning. You were going to be watching this gunfight go down in the middle of the street. There were over 300 officers from various forces that responded to this citywide alert. By the time the shooting had stopped, Larry and Emil had fired about 1,100 rounds, approximately 1 round every 2 seconds.
Holy crap.
Yep.
And that
this had
includes
happened...
time of them not firing their weapons.
Yep. So this happened on February 28th, as later on April 17th, same year, the local police raided a house in Anaheim that was traced back to these two. And boy, guess what they found?
More weapons?
Oh, so much.
Oh my god.
They seized incendiary AK-47 ammo. Now, to be specific, for those that are not aware, this is ammo that will basically catch fire, whatever it hits, if it's flammable.
The only reason I know that is because of the Dread movie. You haven't seen that, have you?
Maybe? I have not, no.
Watch the one.
It is on the list.
Gotta watch the one with
There's
Carl
so much
Urban.
on the list.
Not the one with Sylvester Stallone. The one with Carl Urban. It's really
One
good.
of those movies, yes. Whichever one you're talking about, yes, it's that one.
It's really good. But he has a gun that he can... this is why I should not explain movies. But he can talk to his gun and, like, kind of like a Siri or an Alexa type.
He's got Siri on his gun, bro.
Yeah, but he'll just be like, incendiary, and then it's like... And then that's the round that he shoots and it catches on fire.
Okay, that's interesting. But on top of this incendiary ammo, they also found more ballistic vests, specifically flak jackets, ballistic helmets, about $400,000 in stolen cash, other various firearms, one of which in particular was a short-barreled AR-15 with a red dot sight on it, which was later released from evidence for use by local law enforcement.
That's odd.
Yeah, they were just like, hey, we can use this.
It's like a fancy new toy. Let's just...
Yeah,
steal
like
this
rather than getting rid of
evidence.
it, we'll put it to use for good rather than evil.
True. It's just, I thought, like, legally they had to destroy all that.
I thought so too, but like I have no idea. I don't know why this one stood out to them that they were going to keep, but out of the various firearms that they found, so
They kept that one.
I guess they liked that one. I don't know.
It was pretty.
Yeah, but here's the crazy part. If that wasn't crazy enough, Emil's family would later sue 2 police officers and the city, claiming that they were indifferent to his wounds at the scene and just let him die.
So, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
in the last episode, that any loss of life is a horrible thing. And, like, I'm not saying it's right. Like, I'm not saying you should deny him anything. You know, that you should try to help him. However, you shouldn't put some ambulance guy who went to work that morning expecting, like, heart attack victims and something in the middle of a live fire situation. Like, maybe if you have a combat medic, you know, one of the cops or something like that knew how to, you know, slow things down or whatever, maybe, but you can't be.
And I think that comes back to, like, the time frame that this happened. The police officers weren't very equipped for that sort of thing. Like, they didn't carry, like, all the gear that, like, they do now with, like, the little small medical kits and stuff where they can do minor stuff on scene before EMTs get there.
Yeah.
They really just had the bare minimum. But this case was declared a mistrial in 2000 and was later dismissed. But it was this shootout that made the LAPD realize that the small caliber handguns that they had were not quite enough for what they should probably have. And eventually, they received 600 M16 rifles from the Pentagon. LAPD patrol cars now carry AR-15s and are equipped with bullet-resistant Kevlar plating in their doors. The LAPD also authorized its officers to carry slightly higher caliber handguns as their sidearms. Also from this, 18 officers received Medals of Valor and were invited to meet then-President Bill Clinton. And there's also a film, apparently, that was made about this incident in 2004 called 44 Minutes, The North Hollywood Shootout. But that's basically the whole story.
That's crazy.
One bad thing leads to another, and it's just all spiraling out of control.
Yeah, like, I feel like I'm gonna have a better frame of reference for, like, when I'm having one of those days and it's like I wake up and something little slightly inconvenient happens. I burnt my toast or something like that, and then, like, it's like one of those days. You know, I didn't go heavily armed into a bank and totally
end up in a shootout.
End up in a shootout, get me and my partner killed, and also wound tons of innocent people, you know.
And be the cause of, you know, police policy being changed.
Yeah. So that burnt toast isn't so bad anymore.
Yeah, suddenly it's not so bad. Our next story, we have another one. If that wasn't crazy enough, we have another crazy story. This one's not about shootouts or bank robberies. This one's about a man who just got fed up with his city council and things going wrong for him, and then he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna take matters into my own hands. So this is the story of Marvin Heemeyer. He was a welder and muffler repair shop owner who lived in Grand Lake, Colorado, about 16 miles outside of Granby, which is where he eventually moved to 10 years before this incident took place. In 1992, he had purchased 2 acres of land from a Resolution Trust Company, which was a federal agency that was organized to handle the assets of, like, failed savings and loan institutions. He bought this 2 acres for $42,000 and was planning on building his new muffler repair shop. But he kind of caused problems for himself because after he bought this land, he eventually decided to sell it to the, I'm probably going to butcher their last name, the Dochev family, because they wanted to build a concrete plant. The price they had originally agreed on was $250,000. But Susan Dochev claimed that Heemeyer had changed his mind and increased the price to $375,000, and then later demanded a deal worth $1 million.
For his $42,000 piece of land.
2 acre land, yeah.
So like when you try to flip something, you got to be reasonable. You
I feel like if you bought it for $42,000, the $250,000 would have been a pretty good takeaway.
Yeah.
Really, like looking at that, that's like kind of the thing that started all of this. So like, had he just took the $250,000 and moved on, I feel like none of this would have happened. But so some people say that this negotiation happened before a rezoning proposal was heard by the town's council. In 2001, the zoning commission and the town's trustees had approved the construction of the concrete plant. Heemeyer had appealed this decision, but he was unsuccessful. Before the rezoning took place, Heemeyer had been using this land to get to his shop. It was sort of like a pathway, like a road for him to be able to get to his shop. But with the new factory in place, his original path was blocked and he could no longer go that way. On top of this, with the building of the plant, it cut off access to his sewer. This is what I've heard. Now, this may not be 100% true, but I've heard that the concrete plant being built here, they were unable to hook up his muffler repair shop to a sewer line because it would have to go under the concrete plant and it was just not going to work. But he was fined $2,500 by the city for just various violations, not just that. It was junk cars on the property and on top of not being hooked up to the sewer line. He had no other choice but decided to petition the city with his neighbors and friends, but this didn't do anything at all. So his shop couldn't function without the sewer line or the cooperation of the town, which he didn't have either, so he's kind of like stuck at this point. So in early 2003, Marvin had decided that he was out of options and he had had enough. He began to convert his Komatsu bulldozer into what he referred to as the MK tank. He outfitted this bulldozer with armor plating which covered the cabin, the engine, and parts of the tracks. In certain places, this armor was over 1 foot thick and had 5,000 psi quickcrete concrete mix between the sheets of tool steel that he got from an auto dealer.
Oh my god.
So Marvin had successfully made a small armored vehicle that could withstand small arms fire and was resistant to explosions. My man basically made a tank. Now for visibility, because can't have any openings, he put 2 monitors inside the cabin of the bulldozer and hooked several cameras to them. The cameras he thought about, the cameras being taken out, so he encased those in 3-inch shields of clear bullet-resistant plexiglass.
I mean, at least he put some thought into it.
Yeah, but wait, it gets more complicated.
Oh my god.
These cases around the cameras were fitted with compressed air nozzles to blow away any dust or debris that could otherwise obstruct the cameras. So he even had like little cleaning spots for the clear glass. So
Wouldn't it have been cute if he had little windshield wipers on him?
bro, squeak, squeak, squeak. Like, he thought so much about it, he even had onboard fans and an air conditioner to keep him cool inside here.
Did he have like a bucket or something too, just in case he had to tinkle? I mean...
Nope, there was not even a door. So basically, once he got in this thing, we'll cover over how that went down in a minute, but there was no way out once this armor was put on. Addition to all this, he had cut 3 gun ports for a 50 caliber rifle, a 308 semi-automatic rifle, and a small 22 rifle, which is just like, basically a squirrel gun. Don't know what he was going to use that for, but
Squirrels.
Probably nothing good. All of these ports were fitted with 1/2 inch thick steel plates. The bulldozer was basically both a tank and a coffin. He had no intention of leaving the cabin once he was inside. Now, being a muffler repair shop, he had a shop crane, which he basically built a steel case that would sit over top of the bulldozer's frame.
Mm-hmm.
So he could use the crane once he was inside. I don't know if it's like he pulled the controller in with him. I don't know how that worked, but he used the crane to lower the armored hull on top of the bulldozer once he was inside. So once it was on top, it wasn't no taking it off. It was estimated that it took him over 1.5 years to finish this project. Don't know how anyone didn't notice this, because apparently he had some people that came by the shop while he was working on it, and they just didn't pay any attention to that going on in the corner.
I feel like over 1.5 years, he could have sold the place and left. And
Yeah, no, but he decided to take it to the next level, and he didn't really need to do all that.
armor a bulldozer? Sounds like something
On
you
June
would do.
4th, I mean, I would do it not to destroy the town, but to just be like, haha, I have an armored bulldozer, because why not? But on June 4th, 2004, he entered the bulldozer and lowered the hull on top of it, and then he would head out for the town of Granby. He started off by going through the wall of his former business and the concrete plant before heading into town to demolish the town hall, the office of the local newspaper that wrote an article against him, the home of the former mayor in which the mayor's widow still resided, and a hardware store owned by another man that Heemeyer had named in a lawsuit, as well as several other buildings. For some reason, I have no idea why, it was noted that he had leased his muffler repair shop to a trash company about several months before he did this. I don't know why.
I guess so they could clean up after.
Maybe. Like, hey, you guys are going to want to stop by here soon, it's about to get real. But this whole rampage lasted 2 hours and 7 minutes, and he damaged 13 buildings and knocked out natural gas service to the town hall and the concrete plant, as well as damaging a truck and destroying part of a utility service center. The estimated cost for all of this damage was around $7 million in property damage. According to the county commissioner, emergency dispatchers were able to use the reverse 911 system to alert many residents and property owners about this bulldozer before he got to them. So thankfully, no one was hurt in this whole thing.
Oh, good.
He fired 15 bullets from his bulldozer at power transformers and propane tanks. Thankfully, they didn't rupture because the sheriff's department had stated that if they did rupture and explode, anyone with 1/2 mile of the explosion could have been endangered.
Oh my god.
But Cody Dochev had attempted to stop Marvin when he went through the concrete plant by using a large scraper. It's like a really big tractor thing that they use. It's a big piece of machinery. Way bigger than his bulldozer, but Marvin just, shot in his general direction and then just pushed it to the side and just kind of, it's just like, I'm just going to move you out of the way. After that, he would later fire on 2 state patrol officers as well as the sheriff as well. The sheriff's department later noted that 11 of the 13 buildings that he destroyed were occupied until just before they were destroyed. So, people got lucky. They got out last minute.
Yeah, I would not want to be in a building that had that come through.
I think if I saw that on the news and it was in my town, I'd be like, hey, I'm just gonna go. I'll come back when this is done.
Yeah, I think I have something to do over there.
Yeah, so 2 states over.
I like how you don't even leave town. You're like, I'm gonna go to another state. It's okay.
Yeah, no, let's just leave. I don't know how far he's going with this, but I think it's best to just, get a good ways away. One officer tried to stop this thing by dropping a flashbang grenade down the exhaust pipe of the bulldozer, but this didn't do anything at all. Local and state patrol, and even the SWAT team, they were just kind of walking behind and beside the bulldozer, just occasionally shooting at it, but because of the armor, it didn't really do anything, but just
Yeah, because bulldozers aren't fast.
Yeah, no, they were able to walk around this thing. They were attempts were even made by officers to disable the cameras by shooting them out, but because of the plexiglass, they couldn't do anything. At one point, one officer was able to climb on top of the bulldozer and try to find a way in, but he had to jump off because he was driving through buildings. He didn't want to get hit by rubble and stuff like that, so he had to get off. At this point, they have no clue how to stop this thing because they're out of options for firepower, and they feared that he would eventually turn on civilians. Governor Bill Owens considered authorizing the National Guard to use a Hellfire missile from an Apache helicopter.
What?
Or a 2-man team equipped with a Javelin anti-tank missile.
Oh my god.
And as late as 2011, his staff denies considering this course of action, but since then, state patrol members revealed that the governor did in fact consider this as an option, but decided against it due to the collateral damage that would cause. Because,
a little bit. It would
just a little bit.
Yeah.
But luckily, they didn't have
this
to do
town
anything like
anymore.
that. Yeah, no, let's just get rid of the whole town at this point. You guys want to evacuate? But thankfully, they didn't have to do anything like that because he drove through the hardware store and he fell into the basement and couldn't get out.
It's like in A Christmas Story. I've fallen, I can't get up.
Yes, quite literally. I guess he didn't realize there was a basement there, and when he went through, the bulldozer just, fell through.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine how heavy that thing was.
Yeah, not only was it a bulldozer, it also had all this tons of
Concrete
pounds
and
of,
metal
concrete,
and-
steel, yeah. So he's now stuck in the basement of this hardware store, and various problems came out of that because the radiator of the bulldozer had been damaged, and now the engine had failed and was leaking various fluids. But soon after, a member of the SWAT team that had been near the dozer reported hearing a single gunshot from inside the cabin.
Oh, no.
It was later determined that Heemeyer took his own life with a .357 handgun. That was the only death/injury from this whole thing, other than like the businesses that were destroyed. Like no one else was hurt. He just destroyed buildings.
He really never intended to leave that tank.
No, like he knew when he built that thing that like once this top goes on, I ain't coming out of here. But now the police had the fun job of getting this thing open. They tried to use explosives to remove the steel plating, but after 3 of those attempts had failed, they had to resort to cutting through the plates with an oxyacetylene cutting torch. They were finally able to remove his body at 2 a.m. on June 5th. And after all of that, on April 19th, 2005, the town announced a plan to scrap the bulldozer by dispersing individual pieces to keep people from coming up and taking souvenirs from this thing, because I guess some people would possibly want a souvenir of that thing for some reason.
It's so messed up, but yeah, people do that.
But although no one was killed during the rampage, his dozer had been given the name Killdozer after a 1944 short story of the same name by Theodore Sturgeon. I don't know how these two are related. I'm not familiar with the story or why they decided to give it that name, but that's what it's been called now. So, but he did kind of give a reason for this to suggest that he was not mentally well. Because he had several writings that he'd left on the wall of his shed and 3 audio tapes explaining everything. The tapes had 2 separate recordings on each side for a total of 6 recordings, and he mailed these to his brother in South Dakota just before he got in the bulldozer.
That's really sad, though. It's really sad.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of things could have been done to prevent this, but it seems like a case of him not getting the help that he needed. Kind of thing, which is unfortunately a lot of the cases in like most of the crime stuff is like people not getting the help that they need or in the way that they need it.
Well, I know probably sometime down the road we'll talk about the Manson family, but I know when he was younger and he was in institutions and prisons and things like that, he asked them to not let him go. He's like, I like it here, I don't want to leave. But the same thing happened, like, it's a fairly more recent one too, but they have documentation of him going to medical care month after month after month saying, I need help. I if you put me back out in society, something bad will happen. Please help me. Please don't release me. Please don't let me go. And they did, and the person went on to
and something bad happened.
Yeah, and it's just like, how can you, like, if I understand that, yes, there's overcrowding and yes, there are things, but how can you just let someone like that just go?
They literally just told you they're going to hurt someone or do something bad, and you and you let them go.
How do you, like, why don't you give them access?
That seems like a special case where it's like, this person we need to keep.
Or get them the help that they need. Get them into some sort
or
of
send them
mental
somewhere
health
that
program.
can house them.
Yeah, because I mean, I am a huge advocate for taking care of your mental health. Cracko knows, but maybe not all our listeners know that I do suffer with my own mental health issues. But you need to take care of them just like your physical health. It is just the same. I mean, if you had cancer, would you not go to the doctor? So if you have a mental illness, you should go to the doctor. You should get it. This is my very uneloquent way of saying, get the help you need.
This is a very very nice way of saying, take care of yourself or I'm gonna punch you.
But yeah, that's really sad. Like, if he had gotten the help he needed, if he had just been able to move on from this shop, from the area, and all that stuff. You know, who knows what he could have done with his life.
Yeah. Because we'll touch a little bit more on his reasoning for it. There's some quotes from his tapes and stuff here. Because his brother turned those tapes over to the FBI, who then sent those over to the Grand County Sheriff's Department. And finally, the tapes were released on August 31st, 2004. They're about 2.5 hours long. And the first recording was made on April 13th, 2004, and the last was made just 13 days before his rampage on May 22nd. So he was recording these, I guess, while he was building this thing.
Yeah.
But in the first recording, he stated that God built me for this job. He also stated that it was God's plan that he not be married or have a family so that he could carry out this attack. He also said that I think God will bless me to get this machine done, to drive it, to do the stuff that I have to do. God blessed me in advance for the task that I'm about to undertake, that it's my duty. God has asked me to do this. It's a cross I'm going to carry, and I'm going to carry it in God's name. Investigators also found a list of targets, which included the buildings that he destroyed, along with the local Catholic church, which he didn't destroy, and the names of several people who were against him in past disputes. Notes were also found that stated that his primary motivation for the rampage was to stop the concrete factory from being built near his shop. He said, I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. He said, sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things.
So one of the things, and I'm obviously not a medical professional, I am not diagnosing anything, but I do know over the years, people who hear voices, whether it be schizophrenia or some other sort of auditory hallucination, anything like that, because of the way it comes in through your mind and through your senses, people often equate it to talking to God. They think God is talking to them. So it is possible that perhaps he was having some sort of episode or auditory hallucination, and that's what he thought was God when it was really just his mental health. Again, I'm not saying I know this for a fact. I'm not diagnosing anything, but I do know that there have been many stories over the years of similar things. So just hearing him say that God told me.
But it also makes it even sadder that he was like, I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. And it sounded like he didn't want to do that, but he felt like he was pushed to do it, so to speak.
He felt he had nothing else. No other choice. It's really, really sad. Thanks for bringing everybody down, Kraken.
Yeah, we ended it on a sad one, so... I mean, they're both... I mean, it's crime stories. What about it is happy, to be fair?
This is true. They're good stories, though.
It's still interesting that, like, he built this thing, and no one noticed. No one was like, hey, what's that for? That's gonna do it for me.
All right. Well, good job, Krako. Next week, we will be back with a true crime story again. I actually am really excited about it. It's going to be another one of my stories. So I hope to see you guys next week. And Kraken?
Okay, bye.